What's up everyone, Karue here from My Tennis HQ. Hope you guys are doing great. And today we have a racket review that it's a little bit more than a racket review because I'm actually switching to this racket. So if you've seen my previous video about the new EZONE tour, you know that I really liked it, and I've been kind of in the market for a switch, and this one kind of hits all the spots. So I've been playing with it for a long time. I really like this racket, and I'm kind of going to break it down in this video, why I'm switching, the things I really like about it, some of the things that I think it could be better that might not be for everyone. But yes, this is it. I'm making a comeback to YONEX, so let's just jump right to it. And before we begin, two things. First, we know a lot of our viewers aren't yet subscribed to the channel, so please, if you're watching our content, make sure you subscribe. It really helps us grow the channel and put out more content for you. And number two, if you're like me and you're switching to the EZONE tour, we have a link below through Tennis Warehouse. Full disclosure, My Tennis HQ works with Tennis Warehouse with their affiliate program, so if you buy from them using our links, we make a small commission and no cost to you. So it only really helps us, again, keep expanding the channel and bringing out better content for you. So again, if you're going to make the switch like me, and you're gonna buy from Tennis Warehouse, use our link down below. It really helps us and we really appreciate it. Alright, so before we start the review, something I noticed is that you guys are really curious about how the rackets sound when you make contact with the ball. So I'm just gonna add a little clip right now of me hitting while mic'd up, with the dampener, without the dampener, and so you guys can really take a listen to the racket. I'm not sure how well it will translate into the video, but it's something to begin with. I'll also add the specs of the racket on that clip, so you guys can all take a look at the specs if you haven't checked yet. So let's just take a listen to it. Alright, so if you watch some of our older videos, you know that I really like the EZONE 98, but I had a few issues with the weight and the plow through of it. So that kind of pushed me away from the racket. I didn't really feel like it would be a great racket for me to switch. And now this EZONE tour fixes all the issues I had with the EZONE 98. It delivers the kind of racket I was actually looking for right now. So let's just break it down. The reasons why I think this racket is really good, not just for myself, but for a lot of players out there. Some of the issues I have with it as well, and hopefully you can make a great decision on buying this racket or not buying from this video. So let's get right to it. Alright, so starting with power and control, I think it's easy to just talk about power or control like they're two different things. Obviously, some rackets provide more power, some rackets provide more control, but there's a ratio in which we can gauge, like, hey, if I swing out, I get enough power, but if I'm in a defensive position, does the racket help me stay kind of neutral through the point? So the EZONE tour excels at delivering great balance between power and control. If I go for my shots, I don't have to worry about overhitting, to be honest. If I have to control a hard shot, the racket feels stable and pockets the ball on the strings really well. The new weight and the balance point kind of works perfectly for me because I'm used to playing with heavier rackets, and this racket, because it is, the balance point is 4 points headlight, so it's fairly head heavy, but the swing weight and just this weight of the racket isn't too high. It feels like a racket that provides a lot of plow through. So that new weight and balance point really works perfectly for my shots. I'm a guy who likes generating a little bit more topspin on the forehand. I don't want like hitting it too flat, even though like when I go for my shots, I end up going a little bit flatter. And on my backhand side, I really like to drive it and hit flatter. So both sides play a little bit different, and I need rackets to help me with both sides. Especially on the forehand, it's something that I was looking for, something that would add a little more topspin and that would travel through the air a little bit easier than my speed. My speed is longer and just heavier. So now with time, I just feel like I'm having a hard time swinging the forehand. I'm ending up pushing in too much and not really accelerating too much. And with the E-Zone Tour, it really kind of fixed that. I'm able to like swing out a little more on the forehand and still hit my backhand without having to adjust too much. And I feel like if I go for it, I get enough power, but with the 16-19 string pattern, I get enough topspin to make that ball drop. So I don't have to worry about overhitting. For me, it's a huge deal. But at the same time, when I'm in a defensive position that someone is like attacking me and I need the racket to stay stable and move through the air quickly through the shot, so I'm able to, you know, go from a defensive position to neutral or even attacking because I'm a good counter puncher. I felt like I could do that, so I can load and be aggressive and hit really hard, but at the same time I can play a little bit flatter and use the pace of the shot as well, because I like doing that with, you know, with my strokes. So for both kind of strokes, it really works because I can, again, accelerate a lot or just use the pace to redirect the ball well with this racket. So for me, the power to ratio control is absolutely nails. I love it. For my game, might not be perfect for you, but for my game, I really enjoy it. And I think I'm actually gonna improve while playing with this one. So moving on to maneuverability. I think a lot of people are kind of concerned about this racket because of that 4-point headlight balance. It is definitely a head-heavy racket. It's not necessarily the most, it doesn't feel light through there, so the swing weight, it is a little bit higher. But at the same time, it's, again, like I said it before, it's a great balance because at 315 grams, it is not that heavy. So if you're someone who is used to playing with a heavier racket, not someone who's playing in the 300 grams all the time, someone who's used to playing the 315, 330, you're not going to feel like this is a racket difficult to swing. Like I had a much harder time swinging the 97 HD for some reason, the VCore 97 HD. So this one, again, very maneuverable, especially on defensive shots that I feel like I could flick the racket and bring it around. I never felt like I was hitting it late because of this balance point. So overall, maneuverability, again, in my perspective, was good. Also take into account that I'm a good hitter and I'm a stronger guy, so like I'm used to this sort of racket. So for you, if you're not used to that kind of heavier racket or even heavier head, it might feel a little tricky. But you know, if you're used to that, I think you're gonna like it. So again, still very maneuverable for those, so don't be scared about those, that 4 points headlight if you think it's going to be too heavy in the head. I think for most players it's going to be okay. So definitely great racket for maneuverability. So moving on to serving, man, this racket is the real deal for serving. The 4 points headlight, making it a little bit heavier on the head, makes it easier to swing. The racket does a lot of the work for you, so you can really be aggressive with the serve. I've done a review before on the E-Zone Tour, on the E-Zone 98 just for serving, and I had a few issues about, you know, really getting the plow through my serve. I could move it, I could get the slice, I could get the kick, but really the flat one I struggle with. I feel like I wasn't going anywhere. And this time, man, I can hit any serve, I can slice it, I can go flat, I can kick it really well. I feel like the racket, because of that balance, that swing weight, really does provide a great feedback for serving. And I mean, if you look at players who play with this racket, Karue, Naomi, they're all good servers. So it does say something about how the quality of this racket for serving, and really, really excited to actually go out and hit some serves with this racket. I think, again, always keep in mind, this is, from someone who does play with heavy rackets and likes playing with heavy rackets. And even though this racket isn't on paper that heavy, it can feel a little bit heavy. But if you are used to that, I think you're really gonna enjoy this for serving. So make sure you check that out. And lastly, let's just talk a little bit about touch. Touch and feel, actually. So I think at the end of the day, you know, switching rackets or not switching rackets, it always depends on feel. Does it feel good in the hand? Do you feel like it's helping you hit your shot and not making you hit a different kind of shot, like adjusting your swing to the racket? That's the worst thing you can do. Never adjust your swing to a racket. Okay, and this racket, you know, provides a lot of feel. It's not muted whatsoever. It's not that kind of racket that you just don't feel the ball on the strings. But at the same time, it's not too old school where, you know, you're kind of feeling every single shot. That's something that I actually enjoy about it. I think on my speed, I end up feeling the ball a little bit too much right now, and I'm looking for something a little more comfortable. So, you know, for anything that requires, you know, a slice, a drop shot, volleys, I really felt like the racket gave me, again, good stability and touch in those shots. And, you know, I could tell, you know, if I was mishitting, but it wasn't going to be like terrible on the arm or anything. So again, no really complaints about touch. Obviously touch is like, at the end of the day, it's more on the player than on the racket. So don't think all of a sudden you're going to drop shot like curious if you buy this racket. But I think it's a pretty good racket for touch. Okay, so some cons about this racket. Obviously, if you've listened to me so far, you know I really like the racket. So for me, it's hard to find many faults with it, but I'm trying to take a more objective look at, you know, what most players are looking for in rackets. Players that are obviously not at my level, lower levels, are looking for this racket. So overall, there's a few things that I think you guys should keep in mind. I think the biggest, I wouldn't say it's a con, but it's something to be aware of, is I don't think this is an easy racket for people who play with one-handed backhands. I did some swinging with one hand, and because of the balance and being a little more head heavy, it's really difficult to like swing. Obviously, I play with two hands, I don't play with one hand, but I have a decent one hand, and for me, it really felt difficult to get that racket around because of the weight and the balance. So make sure, if you are someone who's looking to hit with this racket, to switch to this racket, and you play with one hand, go out and test it for a good amount of time, just so you know if you can handle it for long periods of time. But again, I think it's more of a racket for two-hander players. YONEX, you know, with the longer grip, YONEX rackets are usually always a little bit longer. So make sure you go out and test that. But not necessarily the best one for players who are looking to hit bombs with the one-hander. Another point for you to keep in mind, it's definitely the balance point. And you know, I know I mentioned it a lot throughout this video, but it is something that, you know, I had a lot of people asking about it. Does it feel heavy? The points headlight, it seems like it's too head heavy. And for some people it might be, and for a lot of players, especially players who are, you know, lower level, it might be a little bit too heavy. So you have to go and check that out for yourself. I really recommend for most players this racket. I think most players are going to like it, but it probably will be more suited for the intermediate to intermediate advanced player, and not necessarily someone who's a beginner. It will be a little bit harder to swing. At the same time, obviously, because it's a little bit heavier, that way the swing weight is heavier, you can, you know, the racket will help you make a good swing. So if you do have a decent strokes already, I think that will be a good racket. I think if you're very early into your tennis journey, it might be a little tricky to play this racket. So make sure you go check it out. It's not necessarily a con, but it's something to be aware if you're a buyer. And the last thing, and it's not necessarily a con, is more of like, you know, this is the buyer's guide and a review. I want you to make sure that you're making the right decision for you. If you're looking for that old school feeling racket, you know, the more prestige per staff style, this isn't a racket for you. It's not what it's meant to do. It's more of a modern tennis player racket, good for aggressive baseline games, good for, you know, good serving, good overall, but isn't that racket that provides a lot of feedback, that feels like you're playing like, you know, in the late 90s, you know, kind of style. So if you're someone who's looking for that kind of racket, don't necessarily think this is the best racket for that. Again, you can go try it out and see if you're gonna like it. Maybe you're trying to move away from that kind of racket to something more modern, which I truly recommend for most people. But just be aware of that. Not necessarily the best racket for this kind of player. All right, and the last thing, I just want to talk a little bit about why am I switching to this racket, the things I was looking for in a new frame, and maybe it's something that you're looking for, so you can have that in common with me. But the main thing is I've been playing with this custom version of the 2018 Speed. It has a longer grip, it's a longer frame, 1820, it's heavy, it's around 340 grams unstrung. And it's a great racket. It's a great racket for me, but it is, they're all getting a little bit old. I don't really have access to customize head versions anymore. And at the end of the day, I was just looking for something a little bit easier to swing, a little bit easier on my arm. I'm not fully training as much to be playing with a racket that is this heavy anymore, and just kind of like almost a little bit too stiff on my arm every once in a while. I really like it, but I think now with time that I'm not playing as much because of the weight, I end up guiding the ball a little bit too much on my forehand and not having a hard time swing through and creating a lot more racket head speed on my forehand side. So I've been looking for something that would give me more racket head speed on the forehand side and a little more top spin. But without being too crazy, too, launching the ball too much. But at the same time, and this is key for me, allowing me to hit the backhand the way I want to hit the backhand. I don't have to adjust. I don't have to. I do drive the ball a lot on the backhand, and every time I test a racket, I feel like some rackets are really good for my forehand, but I struggle to hit the backhand, and I can never change to a racket that makes my backhand worse. So this racket finally makes me feel like, I can just swing. I'm not even thinking about the backhand. I can just swing the way I swing. But the forehand is giving me a few more options. I can go flatter if I want to, but every once in a while I can just like get really under the ball and create a lot of top spin, get it up and down, especially if I'm on the run, to like create that nice shape. So overall, I was just looking for that in a racket. I couldn't really find it up until now. So this is, again, the YONEX EZONE Tour is a racket that at 315 grams, it's lighter than what I've been used to playing the last, I would say, 5 years. But with that balance, it makes it, it compensates for that. And it gives me that plow through that I always like for rackets. Rackets for me need to help me swing through the ball. I can be the one like fully swinging. Like Rafa, for example, I need to be someone I am someone who drives the ball a little bit more. And this V-Core allows me to do that. I'm not the kind of guy who really loves adding too much weight to rackets. I kind of like having a good stock racket that will allow me to just maybe, the leather grip, a little bit of weight, but that's it. And I think that this racket does that perfectly. Has good weight. It's a little bit lighter than I'm used to, but the balance compensates for that. And it has the plow through I like from rackets, and just overall pockets the ball well. It gives me control, gives me power when I need it. So for my game, really works. And if you're looking for something like that on your game, I think you're really gonna enjoy this racket. So there you have it. This is my full review of the YONEX EZONE Tour. As you can see, I really like the racket because I'm switching to it. I'm still gonna, obviously try a bunch of different rackets for the channel, but this is gonna be my main racket. If you're making the switch like me, make sure you check out the link down in the description, because if you buy with our link, it helps the channel. So, we appreciate that. Visit mytennishq.com. We have a bunch of new articles coming out every week. And join our email list. We're having updates, drills. It's for free. Just put your email and we'll send a new email every Sunday to you. So make sure you check that out. Follow us on social media at mytennishq on Instagram, at mytennishq_ on Twitter. And let us know in the comments below if you're gonna make the switch to the YONEX EZONE Tour, if you're waiting for a new racket, and what rackets you want us to review. And I'll see you guys on the next one.